Well, hello everyone. You may have met me or you may not have. I'm JT Maxwell. I'm the owner of Grand Classroom. About 20 years ago we started this, and it's been an incredible 20 years, and great thanks to you all. Many of you have actually been with us, if not the entire time, most of that time, and we certainly thank you for everything that you've done for us and certainly for your students in providing great opportunities for them over the years. Obviously, on a personal note, the last 4 months has been taking Robin and I from an empty nest to a very unempty nest. We had both of our girls move back in, and 2 of their friends moved back in with us as well. So we went from an empty nest to a house of 6 for most of that time. My oldest, Savannah, is a teacher in Washington, D.C., and she and her friend, who also teach in Southeast D.C., came back here and did their online teaching. So I saw firsthand, from the perspective of a teacher, the difficulty in what it is to teach kids from distance learning under not great situation for a lot of the families on the other end. On the other side of the coin, my daughter just graduated from UVA, and so her last semester, looking forward to all the social gatherings, etc., all fell apart, and so she got to spend it with mom and dad along with her friend. On a good note, Robin and I got to meet Summer and Savannah both on independent cross-country road trips through the national parks a month ago. And so we all met in Utah in Kanab and had a great time going to the Grand Canyon, Lake Powell, hiking, and so it was a great opportunity to get outside. And as you can see, I'm in one of my favorite places where I like to get out. Really hot here this weekend, up to 100 degrees, so we'll be doing it early this weekend. I appreciate you all putting together a list of questions, and Steve and I have worked to compile the most frequently asked questions, and so I'm going to go through those and try to give you all a sense of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And first of all, where we've been, I can't thank you all enough for the patience that you had through this incredible period of time. The uncertainty that we all had in trying to figure out this situation, we feel like we worked really hard, and it was with your patience and understanding that allowed us to get to here. So, I'll go on and talk now about where we are in the future, and I'll go with the top questions from you. If airlines and hotels were giving back 100% refunds to travelers, why didn't Grand Classroom give back 100%? A very fair question. So when we went to work on August 1st last year, that's kind of how we look at our year, as with the school year. We started working on all these trips. So from that day forward, we were paying people, we were paying for insurance, we were paying our salaries, we were paying rent, electricity, and so many things every month leading up to March, April, May, and June, when frankly we do almost all of our business. That fell apart. So we were left with, even if we got 100% of the hotel and 100% of the airfare back, which we absolutely did not in every case, we couldn't give it all back because the money that we set aside to pay our people had already been spent. So we did what we felt was as fair as possible, and going forward we're hoping to have other protections in place so that it can be a more, well, at least more understanding going in, because we all know what the world is now. Will there be a different cancellation policy in place as related to COVID-19 cancellations? Yes. So we've been working very hard to try to figure out what is the future. We know that there are teachers out there that have students that want to travel next year, and yet we also know that may or may not happen. So what can we do? This year we had the TRP, or the Travel Refund Program. And of course it had the language in there that said, if in fact a parent or a school took it, that said, in the act of God and tragedies and pandemics and illness, it wasn't valid. Well, that's language that we all see in contracts all the time, and we say, well, what is that? That never happens. Well, of course it did. This year, we're going to have the TRP and a higher level of protection called the TRP Plus, which will allow for a cost of about 9% more than the TRP cost last year. It will allow an individual or a group to cancel up to 24 hours before the trip for any reason, including COVID-related. This is our goal that we hope will give people the ability and the comfort to say, yes, I do want to travel next year. Yes, I want to plan for the best. Yes, I'm going to prepare for the worst. And if in fact something happens and we can't travel, well, they're going to get most of their money back, other than the specifics of the program and how much that costs. Your account manager will be getting in touch with you soon to go over all of those options. What trips are safe, blah, blah, blah. But as far as that goes, yes, we've come up with a plan that will allow you to move forward. If the school district cancels the trip, do the parents lose money, and how much? Again, and even people who are already signed up for next year, we're giving them the opportunity to upgrade to the TRP Plus. We encourage schools, we encourage individuals, we encourage everybody to protect your investment. However, it's everybody's individual decision, and if they choose to take that TRP Plus, they're covered. If they choose not to take it because they don't want to spend the extra money, then they'll assume the risk, and the normal cancellation policy applies. But your account manager will be getting more information with you about that. How will the pandemic impact the student's experience? Will they miss out on certain activities? Will the itinerary be adjusted by the account manager or on the fly by the guide? Well, the good news is for 20 years, we have always focused on putting an incredible amount of flexibility in the hands of our guides, and we've had great guides. We will always do that, and with the pandemic and with trips that might happen before we're fully vaccinated, who knows when that will be, absolutely positively there's always flexibility built in, and those of us in the office and those of us who will be in the field absolutely have the flexibility to work with you, as we always have, to make adjustments on the fly. So that's always the case, and we're really good at it. Will Grand Classroom be putting together a list of procedures that teachers can go over with students prior to travel? Will everyone be required to wear a mask? And what about hand sanitizer? Absolutely, we have a COVID mitigation plan, which your account manager will go over with you. And as long as the pandemic is going on, yes, you will be wearing a mask, obviously in airports, on planes, in buses, and when we're in indoor facilities. It's the right thing to do, and that's what we're going to do. When we're hiking in the Grand Canyon, we get to take the mask off. When we're walking on the mall in Washington, D.C., as long as we're spread out, yes, we take the mask off. Grand Classroom is positioned to create custom itineraries with lots of outdoor stuff, and so nobody loves wearing a mask. The mask will be worn when needed, when necessary. Hand sanitizer will be provided, but we'll also be, of course, asking families to bring all that themselves. Personally, I have certain masks that I like and ones that I don't. I'm sure you do too. What are the vendors doing to ensure safety of the travelers? Airlines, buses, hotels, meals, and activities. Well, that's a big one. Bus companies, for instance, are deeply sanitizing their buses before your trip, and at night every day they're scrubbing it down. Airlines, the airlines are handling it all differently. My wife actually traveled. I drove on our trip out to Utah, but she flew, and she felt great about the experience, felt that it was very safe and clean, so she actually took 4 planes to get out and back. every situation is going to be different, and we all have to take some responsibility to be ready to travel. Some of you may have traveled and some of you may not. And so by the time we get to your trip, things may have changed, protocols may have changed, and we will be flexible in going with it. And we're going to be asking the same of all of our vendors. Social distancing, bus, hotel. So one of the discussions we've had with some of our teachers is if we are choosing to travel and COVID is still active or out there and not everybody's vaccinated, we're choosing to travel as a family. And so if you're in a hotel and you want less than 4 kids to a room, you can tell your account manager that, and we can do that. Some folks are saying, well, if we're taking the responsibility to travel with people, then we're acting as a family, and so 4 kids to a room is fine. But certainly we can do that. Same thing with the bus. If we need to spread people out, we can work with that. And then we'll always be working to make sure that our group is distant as much as possible from other groups, which is easier in some places than not. But yes, we will be focusing on keeping our family together and not mixing in big crowds for sure. How will it be handled if a state, either the one we are traveling to or from, reinstates travel restrictions and has mandatory quarantining upon arrival? Well, I would say this: if your state is requiring you to quarantine for 14 days when you get home, chances are you will probably exercise the right to either cancel the trip, and hopefully the TRP Plus is in place, or ask us to postpone the trip, as we have done. We have a lot of trips coming up in the fall and next spring that were scheduled for last spring, and we'll constantly be reevaluating each one of those to make sure that it's safe to go and that there are no restrictions in place, either in the place that you're going or the place that you're going back to. And so we just have to keep an eye on that and evaluate, and we hope that everybody takes advantage of the protections, which allows us to, again, hope for the best, be prepared for it not to work. Can we move our dates and combine 2 grades for 1 trip? Yes, we have a lot of schools who were supposed to go last spring who are choosing to go next spring, and a lot of those kids have rolled over. If you had a trip for an 8th grade, for instance, and they want to still go on the trip next year with next year's 8th graders, yes, we can absolutely combine your current 9th graders with next year's 8th graders and do the trip. And if we're planning a trip and it's not safe to go, we will always work to try to move the date of the trip. Is it safer to travel by bus rather than by air? Again, everybody has to make that decision themselves. I can tell you again from my wife's experience, she had a great experience flying. Is it safer to travel by a bus? This is all I'll say is, of course, when you get to your destination, you're going to be on a bus. So if you prefer to use a bus to get to said location, using only 1 mode of transportation versus 2, certainly we can help you design a trip that works within range of your home, and we can customize that trip. But everybody has to make that decision. I want to travel, but I don't know what my school or families will be able to commit to a trip this early in the fall. Can we wait and decide later in the year? How do we plan a trip if the kids are not in school? How do you plan a trip if the kids are not in school? Well, the one thing we do know is you will be teaching. I do know that my daughter is going to be teaching, yet she doesn't know whether she's going to be in the classroom, she hopes she is, or whether she's going to be virtual again, maybe living here still in Charlottesville instead of Washington, D.C. But you do know that you'll be teaching, you do know that you'll have contact with the schools, the kids and the families, and so if you are ready to introduce the trip and you are ready to give these kids something positive to look forward to, and you're ready to assume, as I do, and hope that next spring and summer certainly is a better time to travel than now, we're ready. And so we feel, and we're incentivizing. We're going to have some discounts for groups that sign up very early in the fall. So if you're ready, you can talk to your account manager about these things so that we can give something to the kids to look forward to. And in addition, it also gives us the ability to go to our vendors and say, hey, we have these groups who want to travel. We want the best guides who have been unemployed for a long time to have something to look forward to. So we're trying to get a jump on the gun, and we're offering you incentives to do that and discounts so that we have the ability to have something to look forward to ourselves as well as you and kids. Our district county administration said we cannot travel out of state. Do you have any local options for us? As I mentioned when we talked about the air versus bus, we've been customizing trips for 20 years. And so when you go to our website and you see the trips that we do, chances are we do a lot more trips than that. And chances are, if you have an idea for a trip closer to home, whether it's in-state or in a neighboring state, we've probably done it. So yes, we can do something closer to home than what you might have been thinking about before. So let's talk. Well, that was the list of the biggest questions. Obviously, we're here and ready and available, so call us if you have any further questions. Didn't want to go on too long, but I appreciate your time, and I certainly hope this was helpful. With as little as maybe 3 weeks, with maybe as many as 6 weeks left of summer, I hope you all have a great rest of the summer.